إلا الله. بسم الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولا تحسبن الله غافلا عما يعمل الظالمون إنما يؤخرهم ليوم تشخص فيه الأبصار. صدق الله العظيم وكان وعد الله حقا. فقال النبي الكريم صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم مثل الجسد إذا اشتكى منه عضوا تداعى له سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. أما بعد. As I begin, obviously something weighs on the minds of all of us here. And in light of that, I felt it was appropriate to reflect on a question that most of us ask in times like this, which is, what is it that I can do for my brothers and sisters? And there's a tangible element to it, and there's also an intangible element. There is things that we can do with our money, perhaps we can do physically, but there's more than that as well. Most of us, to try and discuss this, I felt it was appropriate to look at the example of siblings. And most of us probably have siblings, because if there's one thing that Muslims agree on, at the very least, it's that we like to have many kids. We all recognize the fa'idah, the benefit of having lots of kids. It's very rare that there's families where there's only one child. And this is not to speak ill of those families, but it's just pointing out that we have families in our communities. We have big families in our communities. And when you have siblings, any single person who has a brother or a sister will tell you that there have been times in their lives where they've looked at that person and said, I do not understand how that person is related to me. I cannot for the life of me begin to understand what it is about that person and me that is connected or related. This is very common, right? Because when you have siblings, you're different people, but you live under one roof. There are similarities, but you often find ways and reasons to argue. You have issues, you have something personal that they do or you do that they get upset with you or you get upset with them. You get angry over certain miscommunications, things that are said, things that are done. Whatever it might have been, if you have a sibling, you've had some issue. You've had some problems with them. But one thing that you notice very consistently is that in times of crisis, no matter what the differences are, no matter what the issues are, the problems that exist, in times of crisis, a family comes together. Whatever those problems are, whatever those issues are, they're not relevant, because you cannot miss the forest because you're looking at the trees. You have to see the bigger picture. And in the moments of crisis, all of us do. We find it within ourselves to say, that is not important right now. My issues with that person, my brother or my sister, these are not important right now. I'm going to focus on what is important, which is the situation that we're dealing with. And in those times, we see that humans have the ability to put these things to rest that happen. To take issues that simmer on the surface constantly and take them and put them to bed, even if just for a little bit. What this should tell us then is something unfortunate about the reality of our relationship with our Muslim brothers and sisters. Because unfortunately, even in times of crisis, even in times like right now, we still find reasons to make our brothers and sisters the other. We still say, well, they're this madhab, or they're that, or they do this, or they practice that. Therefore, I will never be associated with them. Instead of realizing that by doing so, by looking at our brother or our sister who perhaps thinks differently, acts differently, whether it's wrong or right, looking at them and saying, this is not the time for these issues to matter. This is that intangible element. This is that non-tangible thing that we can do. Because by allowing our brothers and sisters, the people who I didn't make family, who the Prophet ﷺ didn't make family, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made our brothers and sisters in faith, those people are the people we need to come together with. And by pushing them away and making these people the other, all we're doing is fulfilling the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the prophecy of the Prophet ﷺ, which is where the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were sitting, and the Prophet ﷺ came to them. And he said, يُوشِكُ الْأُمَمُ أَن تَدَاعَ عَلَيْكُمْ كَمَا تَدَاعَ الْآكِلَةُ إِلَى قَصْعَتِهَا. There's going to come a time where everybody starts to come. All these other groups, nations, whatever it might be, they're going to start to come down on you, O Muslims. Like a person who's coming to a feast goes down on their feast. All of us have heard this. And the Sahaba, of course, the natural question, well, is it because we don't have enough Muslims? Is it because we've lost? We don't have Umar, we don't have Abu Bakr? What's the deal? Why is it that we're like this? The Prophet ﷺ says, no. It's going to be because بَلْ أَنْتُمْ يَوْمِذٍ كَثِيرٌ. You'll have plenty of people. There'll be plenty of you to be there. But the Prophet ﷺ, وَلَكِنَّكُمْ غُثَاءٌ كَغُثَاءِ السَّيْلِ. However, you'll be like the foam of the ocean. If you've been to the ocean, what do you see? When the waves crash, there's foam. A child is going to get excited and grab it because it's just like bubbles in a bath. But when they pick it up, what are they left with? Nothing. Left with nothing. And that is the value of it. Nothing. Nobody buys that scum. Nobody sells that. Nobody can have any value from that. The Prophet ﷺ is saying that this is what you'll be akin to. And understand, I'm not saying that we are. To be clear, what I am saying is that by allowing petty differences to come between unity, to come between standing together as an ummah, that is fulfilling that prophecy. That is what I'm saying. It is not that we have reached this place we're gone, we're completely, out of the ability to be redeemed. No. But what I'm saying is that when we allow ourselves to think, oh, well, he's Desi and I'm Arab, or he's Arab and I'm Desi, or they're from Uzbekistan and he's from Kyrgyzstan. When we allow that to be my mindset, instead of the only thing that matters is that person, whether they are a fasiq, whether they do things that are wrong, whether they do things that are super pious, whether they're amazing people, they have La ilaha illallah in their hearts. That's all I care about right now, because all those other issues at the top, I'm pushing them down. Because it's not that time right now. It's not time for this right now. No blame game, this, that. No, it's not time for that right now. What becomes clear through this narration is that the numbers are truly irrelevant. They don't matter. What does matter, however, is not being like something worthless, scum of the ocean. What matters is bringing one another, being like the Prophet ﷺ said, that we're like a bunyan. We're like a building, that we support one another. As believers, we are there. One brick leads to another. And anybody may be sitting here today and saying, well, you know what? I don't do that. I don't make people the other. I don't say I have an issue with this person or that person. Other people do that. But the reality is that if we are comfortable enough to say, oh, I don't do this, so it's okay, I don't need to work on anything, that's a bigger problem as well. It's not about doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing. It is about actually having sincere connection with your brothers and sisters, having actual unity with our brothers and sisters. Too often the question becomes, well, how am I supposed to be with that person if the only time I see them is at Jumu'ah? How am I supposed to spend time with this person or have some connection with this person the only time I see them is at this one place or that place? Well, the answer is very simple. you go to that person and you introduce yourself. That's the start of it. And what I mean by that is that when we sit here together, we may find ourselves in groups. The Uzbeks over there, the Desis over here, the Arabs over there. But that's not okay. That's what I'm emphasizing. It can't be that we are in these groups that are separated. It can't be that I spend time with those people because those are my people. Everybody's my people in this place. There is no other. There is no them. It's we. And if we cannot allow ourselves to go outside of our comfort zone and go up to people we don't know and give them salam as our brother, give them salam as our sister, then we are on the path of this hadith. We are falling right into what the Prophet ﷺ said. And you know, you want to understand one aspect as well in this narration, because the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah will remove the fear that your enemies may have for you. And instead, He'll put this feebleness in your own hearts. And they said, what's the deal, Ya Rasulullah? Why is this happening? What's causing this weakness in ourselves? And he says something that when you hear it, you might think one thing. The Prophet ﷺ said, love for the worldly life and hatred of death. And so the first thought you may have hearing this is, oh, great. Another khutbah about why I can't be rich, or why I can't have this, or why I can't have that. But that's not the case. Each and every single one of you has heard me before say up here, having love for the dunya is not about having nice things. Having love for the dunya, being connected to this dunya, is not about having nice things. Having love for the dunya is that you are isolated. Having love for the dunya is that you're individualistic. It's that you sit there and you think, I am the reason for my success. I am the cause of the good that happens in my life. I am the one in control of these things happening. And therefore, I can continue to bring more benefit to myself. Or perhaps I can benefit other people. This is love of worldly life, because love of the worldly life is love of power. It is love of your ability to control. Any person hears this statement that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That statement doesn't come from nowhere. When we feel like I'm in control, I'm in the driver's seat, I'm the one who makes everything happen, then you know what ends up happening is that we are our own focus. The love of the worldly life becomes love of myself and what I can do. That I enjoy the ability to control things. And I love to be by myself. And I don't mean that no people are in your home or you don't have friends or family. What I mean is that I am not connected to this community. Because when you're connected to a community, you see a lot. When you're part of a community, you become humbled. Because there are people who may act a certain way, and to be a good Muslim, you have to just swallow down that anger. When you're part of a community, there are people who are going to say certain things that you don't recognize or you don't understand. And in order to continue to be on a prophetic path, you have to be able to step back and say, you know what? Let me go find out myself, instead of just saying, no, you're wrong. I know what I know. It humbles you to be part of a community. It puts you in a place where you also are not afraid. You're not thinking that I am the one in control of everything that happens in my life, but rather you start to realize maybe I have some options. I have the comfort in my heart, the solidarity that my brothers and sisters, if I need them, they have my back. And when that feeling occurs, what happens is like something that happened over this past week that I heard firsthand from somebody, where an individual who worked at a job, worked at a professional, high-paying job, he got word that there were people who wanted to have the upper management make a statement on behalf of their company, supporting only one side in this conflict with Palestine. Supporting only one side. And he reached out to several people who were in upper management, and he made it very clear if you do this, I'm leaving. Now, how does that happen? It doesn't happen because he's by himself. It doesn't happen because he feels insecure. It happens because he feels secure. He knows that he can do whatever he needs to, and if he ever needs assistance, his community has his back. And you know what the result of it was? They came back to him and said, you know what, listen, we're not doing that, just so you know. We know it's a nuanced situation. We know it's not just this black and white issue. But that's how you get to that place. You have community behind you. You have people you trust behind you. People who make you, who lead you to a place where you're not just constantly afraid. You're not living with a scarcity mindset. That's what community can do. Because there is no strength in being by yourself. You see this illustrated very clearly when tragedy occurs in a family. What do? People come together. Someone's in a car accident. Someone's in the hospital. It doesn't make sense. What are you going to do? You're in the hospital and the doctor says, we don't know what you're going to do. You just have to pray and wait. What are you going to do by sitting in a chair next to someone? Well, the answer is that you are going to be present. You're going to be with people who feel your pain. You're going to be part of your community at a micro level. But that's also then where we have to recognize there is so much value in being part of our community at a macro level, at a big picture level. Being in the masjid, being with our brothers and sisters, not just one day a week, but other times as well. Being engaged, being involved, finding strength through one another. When you're by yourself, you don't belong to the community, you don't have that backing, you don't engage with others, and therefore whatever actions you do, no matter how in control you feel, your impact is only one. But when a community gets together and says, this is what we are going to do, now your impact is legion. Now your impact is multiplied. That's the difference. But you have to be able to be with your community, and you have to be able to stop focusing on things that are irrelevant when it comes to being united in times of crisis. This is how we reach that place. And understand that we are probably the last faith group to realize this. Because those who currently promote and push this agenda that we see in media, those who promote and push this idea that this is some one-sided conflict, those people got together and they said, we are going to say, no matter what our differences are, no matter what our opinions are, no matter even what our faith is, we are going to put all of that aside and work towards one issue, and that's it. We'll be united for that. And what was the result? You see the results. And on the other side, we see the results of what our inaction has led us to. What our inability to come together in these times of crisis has led us to, because instead of focusing on the fact that my brothers and sisters in Gaza are feeling pain, are in horrifying agony right now, instead of thinking about the children that are in need, instead of worrying about whether or not I can do something, all I'm focused on is that the people that I'm supposed to unite with, maybe they put their hands up when they go for ruku', or maybe those people wear a certain thing on their head, or maybe those people act a certain way on a certain day. That's my thought process. That's not unity. That's not coming together. That's finding reasons to make other people others when they're not. The person to your left and the person to your right, no matter their skin color, no matter where they come from, no matter their age, that is your brother. That is your sister. Just as much as if the blood that was running in their veins was from the same mother and father, that is your brother and sister. It needs to be internalized. It needs to be. Because in these times, in these moments, if we cannot realize this simple fact, we are on the path to destruction. We are on the path that the Prophet ﷺ foretold. I don't want to be on that path. I don't think anybody wants to be on that path. Make the intention, brothers and sisters, make that intention that I am not going to allow these differences to make people the others, my brothers and sisters the others, because now is not the time for that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open all of our hearts to one another, to allow us to be brothers and sisters in the truest sense. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. Brothers, please scoot up. Any spot you see in front of you, fill in up here as well. Fill in and fill in gaps. People still coming. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, and this was without a doubt the greatest tragedy that has ever befallen humanity, when he passed away, there was chaos that occurred in the ummah. Because the Prophet ﷺ was that binding figure for us. He was the one everybody looked to and felt connected to. But Abu Bakr radiallahu anh stepped up to the plate and he did what was necessary. And there was other companions as well in that time who did what was necessary. A man who was an enemy of Islam for so long, Suhail ibn Amr, who today we say radiallahu an after his name out of respect, in the city of Mecca, he stood up in that moment when people were talking about deserting Islam in its moment of crisis. And he turned to the people and he said, do not be the last ones to enter and the first to leave. And he helped them remember and realize that what they were connected through was not some simple idea. It was not some tiny matter. But rather that this was a connection focused on and built on reaching salvation in the next life. That this is a matter where the Prophet ﷺ said that we are like one body. And we cannot distinguish from one another in that way. Brothers and sisters, we have to be able to understand what we see right now, the horrors and the difficulties and the problems. We can't escape accountability for that. We may feel like I didn't do anything. We may feel like, well, I wasn't there. But as an ummah, it all starts at a micro level. And if any one of us today walked in here thinking I'm better than anybody else because of my background, because of my skin color, because of my height, because of my wealth, walk out of here knowing that none of that makes you any better than anybody else. Walk out of here knowing that this micro change at an individual level is what affects macro change. You change one heart, and then it changes another, and it changes another, and it's a slow process, but that's what the Prophet ﷺ did, and that's how he did it. And that is what we need to understand. You may go on social media and pronounce this and tell people that, but it won't have an impact. What has an impact is the hearts of people. When you know people, when you're connected to people. That doesn't happen because you sit in your homes and you aren't part of a community. It happens when you're part and parcel of one place, one community. That's how it happens. I leave you today, bi'idhnillahi, with three things. Number one, don't get caught up on social media. And I say this particularly for our younger brothers and sisters, but social media is a cancer right now. Most of the time it is, but especially right now. Stay away from it. There are people there who are paid to frustrate you, to make you feel like there's no hope. Stay out of it. Put your time, which is valuable, into other things. Number two, remember that at the end of the day, no matter what anyone does to our brothers and sisters, they will never get away with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Don't you dare for a moment think. Tahsabanna is an emphatic. Don't you dare for a moment think Allah is unaware of what those who do wrong are doing. In fact, all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ تَشْخَصُ فِيهِ الْأَبْصَارِ. He just gives them a little bit of time until a day will come when their eyes stare at horror at what they used to do because of the result of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never lets the wrongdoers go because He is al-adl. But that does not take away the responsibility we have to stand up for what's right. It does not take away the responsibility we have to come together as a community. And lastly, stay positive and make dua. Stay positive and make dua. Stay positive and make dua. I emphasize this because you may think that us sitting here together, making dua together, that's more powerful. You may think going to a prayer event is what's best, that you can do something, some specific action, and that's going to be great. What is more powerful than anything is you raising up your hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you having a conversation with your Allah and asking Him, please protect my brothers and sisters in Gaza. Protect all of my brothers and sisters around the world. There's nothing more powerful than this. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our brothers and sisters across the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to unite our hearts as one ummah once again. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take care of those who do wrong. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine with freedom. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واستغفروا يغفر لكم واتقوا يجعل لكم من أمركم مخرجا وقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر.